acquisition staff administrator. Sammy Castellanos was announced as the
Yep.
second team head coach. You mentioned kind of last time we spoke about what a second team coach would look like.
Yeah.
What does he bring to the group?
You know, Sammy's is really just the perfect personality to deal with that age band of young men. He's got fatherly qualities, but he also sets a level of expectation, of professionalism, of intensity that you can see within 10 minutes of watching training yesterday. He's a great guy. We have he's bilingual. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking players at that level, so you can't discount how valuable that is as well. But instant impact to the group, and looking forward for him to continue to help us grow.
I know you still have some roster spots available to fill, or at least I think so.
Yeah.
But how do you feel like you have a starting 11 that you could go into the season with, or the one that you imagine?
Absolutely. I think that's a credit to a lot of the good work that we did last summer. A lot of the additions that you would maybe see this January actually happened in July and August, but they were only together 6 weeks. You look at Ayub as a forward. We targeted him as a starting player last summer, and then Brenner kind of fell out of the sky on the last day, and he didn't get maybe as many minutes as he thought, and had a little bit of an injury. So we feel really comfortable with the group we have right now to be able to go compete not only in MLS but in Champions League. But the team we put out on February 20th will not be the team that you see in October, much like last year. We'll continue to make additions as they make sense for the team, and try to put a team together that can win trophies.
You mentioned Ayub, and then with Fletcher coming in, and I guess with the forward position, do you feel like you're set there, or is there still
We're still good. We feel like we have good numbers up there. And like I said, we feel that Ayub's qualities, Tom's qualities, are a really good supplement to what Kevin and Evander give us. We have depth up there. Dotto can play up there. We're going to continue to evaluate. The good thing is the game's not played on paper, and so we're going to see over the next few weeks what we thought we were going to be, and so preseason will inform us a lot on what we need to address.
And then with those moves, because you talked about this being like a refresh, how do these players can you share a little bit more about how they maybe fit into that refresh?
I think specifically when we talked about a refresh, it was maybe less personnel based, and more strategically thinking about how we put the best 11 together to accomplish our goals, not necessarily just put the most talent together. And I think the qualities of a guy like Tom, Ayub again added last summer, a guy like Kyle, really just kind of add to the overall recipe more than they are a specific type of player that's going to go out and score us 15 goals. When we talk about the refresh, it's strategic in staffing, how we train. You'll see some of our scheduling's different. So we've thought about a lot of things this offseason to try to maximize the group to be able to win.
You mentioned some of that staffing changes. You guys brought in Brett Udley as an assistant coach. How does he kind of align with what you guys are envisioning as being a change, and what does he bring to the team?
Brett's been everything we saw during the interview process so far. It's early. He's been in the building working hard and building what we want to help build what we want to look like this year. Super bright, super eager, super analytical, but also for a young coach has a really good feel in how to connect. That's what I've been really impressed with. A lot of times you hear about the offensive gurus or something in the NFL, and it's really scheme based. But he's got a real nice feel early on with how to connect with players and to be able to build the trust to then hopefully enact kind of what we're talking about on the field.
One thing we talked about towards the end of last year was the value in having the group together for the most part. It seems like you've been able to get a bunch of this business done early. How valuable do you see that in these first couple of days, but also as you guys plan preseason for what that having the group together can mean for?
Well, everybody showed up for work this year, which was nice. We haven't had a group like this where you have all your top talent, but your foundation, most of it returning with a couple new pieces that are all here already to be able to accomplish things maybe earlier on than Pat and the staff have been able to when you're adding players throughout preseason. There's also a lot of guys that understand what's expected. Again, I think much like going from year one to year two, there was more of institutional knowledge from the group of sort of how we act as FC Cincinnati players and staff that we're going to be able to kind of build off of that as opposed to, be teaching it from day one.
Going back to Christian, is there? Can you update us on kind of where he's at in his recovery from the ACL, and then?
Yeah, I'll leave some of the specifics to the doctors. We think he's been working really hard. That's been in the DC area. Now he's under our care. So it's nice to for us to be able to get our hands on him. We're going to build him up slowly and see when he's ready. He's not going to factor in the beginning of the season, certainly. But with a young player like this, we see the finish line. Not so worried about right now.
Once he is healthy, is he a player that you think can immediately have some kind of impact, or is it more of a development? I mean, you mentioned.
He's played games in our league. He's been overseas. He's if you see him athletically, he's ready. He's a ready athlete to be able to contribute in MLS. What it looks like in our group, we still don't know that yet. We're not going to put too much pressure on him. He's a young player, but really excited about the possibilities.
Going back to what you had just said a bit earlier, how does it change your focus or how you're attacking now the preseason, considering you do have most of your group in the building?
Again, it allows us to approach team meetings differently. When we talk about setting expectations and goals to our players, in years past, we would have to wait and have those meetings in Clearwater 2 to 3 weeks from now because a bunch of guys weren't here. So really just being able to have those conversations about goal setting and what to expect, that allows us to get a jump on maybe some of the years prior.
You talked about scouting wingbacks a little bit differently. So with Brian Ramirez, I know maybe he's still trying to get that over the finish line completely, but he seems like maybe a more versatile.
What I will say is he's with Alvaro and with Luca, those were not experiments, but we were taking an offensive winger and making them a wingback. Brian's got a year or half season of that under his belt already, but he's an attacking player. So a player that we're not done yet. We're still trying to finalize some things and get the visa over the line. I think he's got a level of intensity that we're excited about. If you think about Ender on the other side, that I would say has that level of intensity to be able to balance us that way is exciting. He's got quality, but he's still going to have to learn some things defensively, and that's what the wingback position is. But we've shown that we can develop players in that position. Again, hats off to the coaching staff to be able to do that. Two players that we were able to sell out of that position, and we're looking forward to Brian joining the group as well.
Chris, one thing to add a little bit, I guess, for this season is that the World Cup is going to be here, and that's great and all to have a really cool event. That also means a really long break for you guys, right, in the middle of the year. How does that break kind of change the way you have to approach the year, and how are you kind of planning for what looks like a 2-month break in your season?
Well, it condenses the schedule, and so we'll be going Saturday, Wednesday, right out of the chute for the foreseeable future. So having more players earlier was something that we were trying to, be intentional about, and we're happy with that so far. How we sort of approach the break in the middle of the season, the guys will get a big chunk of time off, and then we'll come back in for a mini preseason. We'll play a couple of games, hopefully regionally, and get back at it. But in some ways, it's uncharted, it's unprecedented, and so we're going to roll with it and see how we adapt.
It's not exactly the same as what the future calendar might look like, but is this a bit of a test run for what the future could look like?
It is certainly. Having the break in the summer will be the norm, and so how you deal with that, what preseason in June and July looks like, as opposed to what preseason in January looks like from a physiological standpoint, all those things will be experimenting with this year.
Has the way the off season has changed anything about the way you view Dotto and his role moving forward, or?
I wouldn't say that the off season changes it. Again, Dotto's a super talented player, and he's an American player that plays the 10 and that does that at a high level and contributes goals and assists. And there's not a lot of players running around like that. So, if you look at the depth chart, though, he's also behind an MVP finalist in the league. So we're going to look at ways to get Dotto on the field. A lot of games helps that. So we want to make sure that Dotto continues to develop into the player that we know he can be.
And then I guess with, I'm talking about that refresh not necessarily being tied to the personnel, but do you feel like you guys have the ability to be more flexible with the formation based on what you
Yeah, I think so. We've had a lot of good conversations around playing in a 4, playing with a single striker, playing with wingers. I think we still are built to play in a 3-5-2, but to be able to have another couple tools in our belt at different times during the year, at different times during a game, is something that we're going to continue to push.
Chris, you guys, FCC2 just announced the acquisition of Daver Mascara.
Yeah.
Could you kind of talk about how that came together and maybe the family connection?
Obviously, Yersin's time here, what he did for us to help us win a trophy. You're able to watch him play for Wolves on the weekend, every weekend. Hopefully he's going to a World Cup. Incredible world-class talent, and, sometimes that's hereditary. And so we've had our eye on Daver for the last couple of years, have monitored him in Colombia, have good relationships down there. Yersin was a good salesman. And so we're excited. Different player, different position, different physique. But certainly not less exciting. He's an exciting young player that has been here a couple days, but certainly has a bright future.
Good morning, man.
Hey, Caleb, how are you?
Good. Hey, with the schedule flip, has that drastically changed or made it more complicated drawing up contracts for potentially multiple seasons for guys?
Yes, and getting the proper guidance from MLS hasn't been the easiest too, because I know they're up against renegotiating a CBA, and so there's a lot of maybe unknown from the league office on some of the intricacies of those contracts and term and how guys are going to hit the budget in certain years. So we're just kind of rolling with it and being as flexible as we can be as we attack this offseason.
We really could have just asked John this later, but
It's okay.
are you guys looking for a set piece coach, or is that something that Brett is kind of?
We are. We're looking at, again, marginal gains, and we think we have elite physicality and height and elite service with Evander. And so it's something I think that we can capitalize on at a better rate than what we did. And so, yes, we are actively interviewing for that position.
Is that something that is becoming more prevalent in MLS to have that? Or is that something that you guys are trying to think outside the box?
No. To be fair, I think we're a little behind, if I'm being honest. I think we've done an incredible job evolving without someone designated to that position. And so I think the existing staff has taken on that role and done a really good job. But freeing up some of their time and having someone designated to that full time, I think, is what makes sense in the modern game.